Good morning. Welcome to the Virtual Procurement Fair. I'm Bethany Menimbo, Marketing Outreach Manager from the Office of Procurement. If you're just now joining us today, welcome. This session is the Information Technology session. It'll be held from 9 to 9:50 a.m. We'll hear a presentation from John Gillick from Technology Enterprise Business Solutions here in Montgomery County, Maryland. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end of his presentation. Please type your questions in the chat box. At the end of the session, we will post a link to a short survey. Now I'd like to introduce John Gillick from Technology Enterprise Business Solutions.
Good morning. Thank you, Bethany, and thank you to the Office of Procurement who put together this interesting and informative session. I'm happy to participate. Once again, they stuck me after 3 excellent public speakers, and now you're stuck with me talking about IT for an hour or so. So I hope you guys have a lot of coffee and are ready to go. I do want to follow up on what Director Shetty said earlier with the puppies. I have a 4-year-old Beagle mix who is my coworker now that we are all teleworking. And I will lay even odds that if an Amazon guy comes to the door, then she will make a vocal appearance during my presentation. I can only hope to contain it. That's as far as that goes. For the next hour or so, I'm going to talk about IT procurement opportunities in Montgomery County. I work in the Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions. The acronym is pronounced Tebs. You'll probably hear me refer to Tebs a lot, so that's what I'm talking about. If we could go to the next slide, we can jump right in. I have to remember what I was going to say. There we go. What I want to talk about first is how Montgomery County is structured from an IT perspective. We use a centralized, decentralized model. And what I mean by that is, while the Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, Tebs, is a centralized IT department, one of 30 departments in the executive office, or executive branch of government. Other IT departments also have, or other departments have IT staff, the bigger ones have IT staff that serve their own departments. So some of the larger departments, such as Health and Human Services, Department of Transportation, and a few others, have their own IT staff that is separate from Tebs. And however, Tebs serves all departments, including the smaller ones, who have no IT staff. Why is that important? Because what I want to point out here is, while this presentation will be primarily focused on Tebs, whose responsibility is for a lot of the enterprise solutions, there are also IT opportunities with some of these other departments. And these other departments will use some of the enterprise contract series that we've put in place, and I'll talk about some of those, MCAT, LCAT, IT commodities. For those of you who have worked with the county before, those buzzwords will be familiar. If not, I'll explain them as we go along. But what I do want to point out is, while we do have a centralized IT shop, more IT staff employees work outside of Tebs and departments than within Tebs. So there's a broad IT focus across the county. Next slide, please. If you had the misfortune of listening to me talk at the last procurement fair last year, I was representing the Department of Technology Services, DTS. Since I've been with the county over, 18 years or so, or more, I imagine, the technology department was called DTS. We reorganized last year to now be the Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions. And part of that reorganization was to move from a service and delivery model to a more collaborative, more innovative organization. Okay, and as part of that reorganization, internally, divisions were moved around, and our focus was changed to be a lot more innovative and collaborative with these departments. And to reflect that, we changed our name. The operating budget for FY21, which was approved, is $44.6 million, which is the IT spend. It includes 166.3 full-time equivalent positions. And Montgomery County's IT what do you want to call it, infrastructure, our IT department, our IT footprint has been recognized over the last 15 years to be number 1 in the nation 5 times. Last year we were ranked number 6. I imagine they do that just to give someone else a chance to win. Sometimes they even include, some local jurisdiction across the river who shall not be named. But Montgomery County has been recognized quite a bit for being proactive and innovative in their enterprise solutions and providing efficient solutions for the departments and residents. Next slide. Okay, and this is probably starting to hit where many of you are interested in. This is the breadth of areas that Tebs contracts for. These are the types of work that we either have contracts for today or are looking for contracts for in the future, or may recompete as we do on occasion, some long-term contracts. And I'll go through some of those just to give you a feel for the breadth of things that, the breadth of technology solutions we are looking for. Two of the things that I will go into further detail on are our IT professional services contract series. They're referred to as MCATs and LCATs. And I will talk a bit more later about that. But for now, let's just assume that there are a number of contract personnel that we get through these contracts, series of contracts with local vendors and with non-local vendors. We have an IT commodity series where we have the ability to purchase commodity type products, again, competing amongst a series of pre-qualified vendors. We have needs for networking, cabling, wiring, and equipment services. We have contracts for desktop computer modernization. I think the county workforce is somewhere around 10,000 people. And so Tebs is responsible for making sure they have all of the laptops and desktops and whatever, what do you call them? Oh, iPads? Not, can't say iPad, but whatever those old devices are called. The generic term for that. Tablets, there we go, tablets, whatnot. These are provisions set up, warehoused, and delivered through our desktop computer modernization and service when necessary, and that's a large contract we have. We've got a big footprint in the GIS space, location-based, map-based solutions. We work with public safety agencies for some location-based solutions, as well as a number of agencies across the county. And if you go to our county website, you will see a lot of excellent GIS solutions and products being displayed there. Montgomery County has an open data law. I think it was passed back in 2012, where we publish public data sets so that anyone can look at the data, manipulate the data, build applications on that data even. Whatever is considered public data, and I think we are close to 500 unique data sets out there on our Data Montgomery platform. So we have services that manage our open data program and some products that are built on top of that. Tebs also has a cable office, which produces cable media for PEG channels, which you'll see on your cable channels if you scroll through. And in producing this televised media, we have a number of needs for services such as closed captioning, marketing services, programming, production services, playback, storing of all of that video equipment or video data files, right? And so we do have a number of contracts with vendors that assist us in producing that video. Excuse me. Computer-aided dispatch. Well, that's obviously a public safety thing that, you know, when you dial 911, you got to know where all the police cars and fire equipment are so that they can be routed as expediently as possible to wherever the residents are calling for. There's a computer-aided dispatch system which assists the police department and fire department in doing that. We have contracts for those. One example of public safety systems. There are other public safety systems that from a technology standpoint, support our public safety officers in doing what they do. One of the big focuses today in Tebs is disaster recovery. Hosting all of these servers and systems, making sure that we have reliable methods to recover from some sort of an event, and that includes preventive services such as preventing things like ransomware attacks from occurring. It's a constant battle between the bad guys who look to cause harm to public agencies like Montgomery County and these counties that look to defend their data and keep things safe and keep ourselves out of situations that other jurisdictions have unfortunately found themselves in. And knock on wood, so far Montgomery County has not been in that situation. But we put a lot of time and effort and look for services that help us stay one step ahead as much as we can from the bad guys trying to do us harm. We do have servers in our in our data center, and they require maintenance, so we have hardware maintenance contracts. We have telephone platform services. There used to be a day when your phone didn't look like that actually it was like connected and plugged into the wall, and there were switches and things like that, and exchanges. We still do have those things in the county, actual telephones that have voicemail, and you can dial it. I'm being a little bit sarcastic here, but those services are still important, and we still have those. There's a movement to push a lot of that stuff into the cloud, but we do have contracts for telephone platform services as well. We have an 800 megahertz radio system to support, and there's a number of contracts in there for the setup and maintenance of that and the equipment that allows people to communicate over that radio system. We have a radio shop where radios get installed into vehicles and things like that, as well as handheld radios, installation and repair, calibration of equipment, these types of things. Contracts for all that would encompass that, including parts, replacement parts, and such. And lastly, but certainly not least, the ERP planning software. We have a ERP system that allows the county to pay all of their bills, including pay their employees. So it's one of our favorite things because it keeps our paychecks coming, I guess. But we've got human resources and financial components to our ERP planning software, and I think warehousing for the alcohol beverage services is all accompanied in that. So hopefully, if you stayed awake through all of that bit of presentation, what I want to leave you with is there is a wide breadth of services between TV and media, ERP, radio shop, telephones, public safety specific solutions, IT professional services, commodities, networking, on and on, GIS, that the county looks to vendors to help us support these specific needs. Next slide. All right, we're going to dive into some of the more popular ones, and I know probably one of the most popular questions that I get when I'm talking to vendors is, what is the schedule? What is MCATs and LCATs, and what is the schedule for recompeting those, because that's coming up. So let me talk a little bit about how we procure IT professional services in the county. We actually have two contract series to allow us to procure IT professional services. One is called MCAT, Montgomery County Consulting and Technical Services, and we currently have 8 participating vendors supporting our MCAT contracts. We also have a local small business version, LCATs, which is the LSBRP Consulting and Technical Services contract series. There are 12 local small businesses, all local small businesses participating in that program. And that was recently recompeted. I'll talk a little bit about that in a future slide. But we alternate in between these two contract series that allows us to request for IT professional services among these contract series, and the vendors compete and bid, and the county selects the most appropriate contractor for whatever job that they are looking for, and that's something that's used very heavily in the county. So the process, as I mentioned, the county will issue a task order proposal request, or topper, and the vendors will respond. We alternate between MCATs and LCATs. Each topper has specific information such as a deadline to respond, scope of work, deliverables, job requirements, that type of thing, and how we're going to evaluate each individual topper, because each individual topper is different. One time we might be looking for GIS support. Next time we might be looking for a couple of people to help us with something in ERP or anything else. It's all based on needs and funding. Okay, next slide. Okay, as I mentioned, there are these two contract series. Well, how do we decide between them? Well, we are alternating between MCATs and LCATs contract series to ensure that both vendor pools have opportunities for work and roughly equal. MCATs is open to all vendors I mentioned. LCATs is open to vendors participating in the LSBRP program. And note, there's no restriction that says that local small business folks can't compete for MCATs as well, but LCATs is specifically reserved only for local small businesses. When we put out a task order proposal request, it's only sent to one group at a time, not both. So one may be sent to LCATs, the next one back to MCATs, back and forth. If for whatever reason there is no satisfactory candidate through one of the pools, we will then look to the other pool of vendors to see if they can satisfy our request. Next slide. Here we go. The county roughly estimated annual business, every year, 22 million combined between the two contract series. So it's a very significant amount of money. The county does have a significant number of contractors supporting the organization, which means that there's plenty of opportunities for those companies in these groups. As I mentioned, LCATs was recently recompeted. An RFP was put out in 2020, right about when the COVID pandemic hit. So it was a challenging endeavor, and I will say the Office of Procurement did an excellent job to figure out how to receive responses from during a time when their offices were physically closed. We had to go from a paper-based to a electronic-based submission process, which is excellent, actually. So we went through that process, and in June of 2021, we awarded contracts to the 12 highest-rated vendors that responded to our LCAT program. We're in the process of doing the same thing now to recompete MCATs. The current MCAT series referred to MCATs 2. The contracts are good through June of 2022. We are currently planning for a release of the RFP. I'll say it's most likely to be January of 2022, as I'm just putting the finishing touches on it now, and we'll my goal is to deliver it to the Office of Procurement by the end of the year, and so hopefully it can be posted in January. This is going to be a recompete for the MCATs contract series. We will be looking for 8 vendors for the new MCATs 3 contract series. And I will say, just as an example, because I imagine I will get this question, when we recompeted LCATs, there were 8 vendors. We expanded it to 12. The 12 vendors, 9 of them are new vendors to the county. Only 3 were incumbents from the LCATs 2 contracts. So only 3 of the 8 were reissued contracts. 9 new contracts were issued. From the county perspective, we're agnostic to that. Okay, there's certainly no guarantee that the 8 vendors with MCATs are going to bid again. We'd like everyone to bid, to be honest. There's no incumbency bias. Okay, just because a vendor is a incumbent on MCATs 2 does not give them, quote, a leg up in MCATs 3. We'll have very specific evaluation criteria, and we will evaluate all businesses when we reissue that RFP. you know, as equal as we can, and the evaluation criteria will be clearly specified in the RFP. So we do look forward to a good response, and the county is looking forward to a relationship with 8 vendors, whether they are new or repeats. It's always good to get 8 new vendors in that are ready and willing and wanting to work with the county. Next slide. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We tried to put an attempt to say, well, what do we use a lot of, right? Well, the thing that we use most of when we issue MCAT toppers is a generic IT staff. But what can be gleaned from this is we do have a lot of ERP requests. We have a lot of specific subject matter experts, right? So there's levels: expert, intermediate, junior, you know, in there. There's a lot of SME experts that we look for. Applications development, as you can see, 8%. Project management, we request a good deal of, and sometimes architects for planning. You know, it does go all over the board, but those categories in the middle seem to be the ones that rise to request for more of those than some of the other categories you'll see in the RFP. Next slide. Okay, that's it for MCATs and LCATs. There's another contract series that the county has been using for the purchase of what we call IT commodities. We currently have a contract series with 7 vendors that was issued in 2014 as a result of an RFP. And the reason why I'm bringing this up here now is in 2022, we intend to recompete that series as well. How this works is when we have these vendors on board, the county issues an RFQ, request for quote, defining exactly what the county is looking for, what commodity we are looking for. You know, sometimes it's a named part with an SKU number. Sometimes it's a little more. You know, we try to be as clear as possible. We issue this to all of the participating vendors. The vendors respond back with prices, and then the county has the ability to select the lowest price for the commodity that meets the county's needs. So that's something that has worked very well for us to give us the ability to compete for commodities over the course of doing business. The annual spend on those contracts is roughly $12.5 million a year. These contracts are good through September of next year, and we do plan on issuing an RFP in FY22, I would say, maybe second quarter or so. You know, once we get MCATs through, and there's another big RFP that's coming out, which I'll talk about, and then IT commodities after that. So we're working to recompete a lot of our large business opportunities here, just like we recompeted LCATs last year. Next slide. Okay, here are some examples of IT commodities. It's sometimes not clear exactly what I'm talking about. The examples of things that can be purchased under these contracts: COTS software, including the installation, training, and maintenance of that software, can be purchased under IT commodities. Certain hardware, specialized servers, you know, custom computers, keyword being custom, okay, monitors, printers, those types of things. Networking equipment can be purchased. Cable TV equipment can be purchased. And of course, the installation, training, and maintenance plans that would be associated with that. What is not included in this contract? Consumable items like paper, toner, CDs, if people still use those things, really. Other office products, we have a separate office supply contract, which is outside of Tebs's, you know, control is for the entire county, so we don't compete with that. Copiers, there's separate contracts for that. Cellular phones and services, we have contracts with individual cellular companies, so we don't compete that under IT commodities. And then basic endpoint devices, the PC that I'm talking to you from now, the tablets, the word that I couldn't figure out 20 minutes ago, those types of things. Those are part of our DCM contract, and so we don't compete them under IT commodities. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what that RFP will be about. Next slide. Oh, goody. I'm getting close to the end here. So just to reiterate, we're going to be busy with the Office of Procurement. We're going to keep them busy too in FY22 with a number of big procurement opportunities in the coming calendar year. Like I mentioned, MCAT 3, where we're looking for 8 IT professional services vendors. That's going to come out early in the year, hopefully January. IT commodities, like I said, second quarter-ish. We're going to be looking for probably 8 vendors to purchase those commodities that I just talked about. Desktop computer modernization. I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that before, but I'll talk about that this time. We have a couple of contracts actually that provide those endpoint devices, desktops, tablets, and the like, to the entire county workforce. Okay, and that includes the purchasing of those devices, the configuration of those devices, the warehousing of those devices, the setup and delivery of those devices. Okay, to make sure that all county employees that require a laptop or a desktop get what they need and don't need to be a technical guru to be able to operate it. Our DCM contract is in place for that. We are in the process of putting out an RFP to recompete that contract, and I do expect that also to be somewhere between that second quarter of 2022. So as you can see, in the first 6 months of the year, we are planning on some big solicitations. There will also be a number of solicitations on a smaller scale, but also just as important, for cable and media production services. I think Tebs has about 10 existing contracts with companies that help us with that. There's always needs for different types of things, and I anticipate in FY22 there'll be some RFPs out for those types of services as well. Now, just because I don't have anything else on the list doesn't mean that we're not going to put out solicitations for any of the other areas that I had talked about earlier. These are the ones that we have committed to for FY22 based on need, based on primarily need. We throughout the year will come up with other ones. I suspect, I believe we have 10 solicitations in various stages of development already. Some that have been released, and some that we're negotiating, some that we're planning, like I'm talking about here. But there's normally a good amount of solicitations that we release, and sometimes even some informal solicitations will come out as well. Okay, I think, despite the fact I feel like I've been talking for 2 hours, I think I've gone through my slides a little bit early. Is this my last one? I think. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is this Q&A time, or shall I turn it back to Bethany, the Master of Ceremonies?
Thank you, John, for that really helpful presentation. Here is some contact information for John Gillick from Tebs, and from Sarah Giambra. She's our procurement specialist here in the Office of Procurement. And at this point, we will have a question and answer session. And I'd like to introduce Sarah Giambra. She's the procurement specialist in Montgomery County Office of Procurement, who handles the IT contracts that John mentioned in his presentation today. So Sarah will facilitate a question and answer session, and we will get started now. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Giambra. I am, like Bethany said, the procurement specialist for Tebs, for the Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions. I'm still getting used to that as well. And I see some questions in the chat for John, so I will take the remaining time to ask some of these questions to John. And John, if you need help, I will jump in as well to some of the more procurement related ones. But I am going to turn my camera off and kind of go through these questions for you. Thank you, everybody.
Right. Do I get to phone a friend?
I'm your friend. You can phone me.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You're friendly. That's good.
Okay. Okay. So the first one that I have is, do other agencies that have IT organizations use MCATs and LCATs to procure IT products and services?
Yes, that's a good question. In fact, other departments use them rather heavily. Tebs is, I don't know that we're even the biggest user of it. We do have probably 40 plus contractors through that through those contract series as well. But there are big footprints out there for some of those other departments that have large IT staff, and they also use large contract staff as well. So that's a big yes.
I agree.
All right, I got that right. I get to move
yes,
to the next. All right, sweet.
And this one might be more directed towards me, but to register for MCAT, which site do we use? Office Procurement or Central Vendor Registration System? Do you want me to take this one, John?
Absolutely.
Sure. So to register to get the solicitation for MCATs, you would register under the Central Vendor Registration System. And make sure that you sign up for all the commodities that are applicable to your company. And then I will also, you can also email me if you are having any trouble with that. I will say that, the last commodity code that we used for MCATs and LCATs was 918-32. So I would probably register for that one to make sure that you get notification when the solicitation is posted. I would also check our website pretty frequently for solicitations that have been posted. And you can always email me, and my email address is up here to see when we're getting closer. I can't really give specific dates, but I can walk you through how to register and make sure that that you are registered. So that is that answer for that. The next question, John, is basically there's a general question of who companies should contact for opportunities.
Well.
I would say that there's the projection page on our website, on Office of Procurement's website, that you can see what's coming out, much of along the lines that John presented today. There's also under vendor resources, there's also a way that you can introduce your business to the county, and it's called the Vendor Innovation Portal, the VIP. And you could put your company, your name, your email address. It asks for your company website and what department you would like to reach. It's a form that you can fill out online, and I would put that out there as one of the ways that you can fill in your information and select the departments that you would like to introduce your company to. Is that good, Jeff?
I couldn't have said it better.
Okay.
Literally could not have said it better.
Okay, and then there was a question about what does COT stand for? They said lots of acronyms are used, which is very government of us, but I'll let you take that one.
COT stands for commercial off the shelf, so it's basically a commodity type commercial product. Right.
Any software that we can use without any modifications, basically.
Right.
And then this one is about the IT commodities contract. It's, it's saying that this question is about, is there any chance for other companies to engage with this contract before it's re-solicited?
Okay. All right. That's an interesting question. So I'm going to take a step back to try to answer that a little more fully. What we have observed with some of these series contracts, more so with MCATs, LCATs than IT commodities, is that sometimes vendors will have primes and subs relationships, and even in their bids, they will bid with a prime and one or many subs, or just as a prime themselves. So the question is, okay, we're going to recompete IT commodities in calendar year 2022. Is there any opportunity to jump in there with these vendors prior to that? And the answer is yes. And let me see how I can phrase this truthfully. Sometimes, I'll give an example. Sometimes there are, commodity products that we look to purchase through IT commodities that, none of the existing vendors may not have relationships with those companies that need to, that they would need to in order to offer those products to the county. And in those cases, other companies that might have those relationships would be useful to vendors who are already under contract in order to broaden their service offerings. And I would think that if you are one of those companies that has some relationships that maybe some of these vendors do not have, that approaching those vendors and working with them, establishing some sort of relationship would be beneficial. Now the county doesn't specify. Once we select our vendors, we don't specify who, what other relationships they have. That's up to that company. But I would think that there may be opportunities there. So, I would encourage whoever asked that question, if you're thinking that you may have something to offer to those vendors, then absolutely reach out to them and see if some of them are interested in pairing up in some way.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So this one is about the procurement bidding forecasts, and like I said, you can go on to the procurement website, and there's a projections page that lists tentative dates for upcoming bigger solicitations. There's a question on cybersecurity, John. It says, how does Tebs handle cybersecurity?
Oh, well, if we told you that, then all the bad guys would be able to break into our system. And if I was capable of answering that question, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in the back room in the dark, and they wouldn't let me talk to people. How does Tebs handle cybersecurity? I think from a generic standpoint, we have a cybersecurity team. We have a chief security officer in charge of that team, and I'm not going to get into specifically what products and services they use, because again, that's something that we don't want to advertise in this kind of a forum. But I will say that we do have needs for, say, cybersecurity experts every once in a while through maybe MCATs or LCATs or some other vehicle, to bring in to help us, harden our systems. So from an architect standpoint, the security architecture standpoint, sometimes we go outside for services there. There are certainly cybersecurity products that we have purchased and will want to purchase in the future as that industry changes, and it's constantly changing, and the things that you have to defend are constantly changing. So I would say there's a lot of opportunities there, but I can't really specifically talk about exactly how the county goes about it, other than to say that we do have a robust security office that is constantly trying to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Yes.
I hope that helps.
It does. The next question is the desktop computer modernization solicitation going to be a multi-award contract?
That is not our intention. We are looking for one awardee to get the bid. That's not to say that awardee might not want to have subs, or the people that build on it may not want to have subs. I don't know. That's up to the primes who want to bid on it. So if the question is asked, if the person asking the question is saying, well, I can do parts of it, but we're not structured to do all of it, then maybe consider putting together a bid where you have one prime and multiple subs that can put together a solution that may, compete well.
And going along with that, there's a question about what we do with devices, when we're ready to retire them, and that is along the same lines of that is in the same contract of the DCM contract as well. So all of those services are included with that vendor.
That's right. Disposal of equipment is part of DCM. That's correct.
There's one that's asked if we can elaborate on the cable and media production services mentioned.
Oh,
you did a pretty good job.
I think I might have dumped most of my brain as far as the knowledge of what goes on there, but I'll talk a little bit more about things that I didn't talk about. So if you can imagine what it takes to, I guess, what do we have, 6 to 8 PEG channels now out there that we support and are responsible in some ways of producing content. So there's content production. There is the marketing and advertisements, letting people know what's on those channels and driving viewership is part of it. Marketing services we have contracts for. And then what I didn't get into, though, is we also have internal media production. Council sessions are, videotaped and archived and put on the county website. And that kind of falls into that bucket of media production. So those types of things. And, county executive, what do you call them? Events that are televised also would fall into that group. So there's some internal need, which eventually for content that's posted on the county website, video content, and then there's that external PEG channel support. I hope I'm not skipping anything else there, but I think those are primarily the types of things that we're looking for: is the stuff that actually produces the content, manages the content, stores the content, publishes the content. Markets the content. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of there's little contracts for each one. It's not one big company that we do.
Yes. Along those same lines, I think you can answer this with your answer just now, but there was a question about IT contracts for soft skills in business, i.e. public relations, webinars, communication, social media, training, etc.
Okay. So some of that is handled through IT commodities. It depends on how you're defining soft skills. We've done document writers and things like that. Architecture types of things. What were your examples again, Sarah? Remind me.
Public relations, webinars, communication, social media, training, etc. Which I believe we have some. Mm-hmm.
Right. Webinars, social media. Yeah. So I would say that our first thought might be to reach out to MCATs and LCATs to see if those types of services are covered by those companies. But if not, and some of the things that you mentioned probably would not be specifically IT related, then yeah, that might be a new solicitation. I could envision that happening.
Let's see. There's one that says that it's more about MCATs and LCATs, but it's asking, it says that it sounds like they have a wide array of professional services. Is legal work classed in together with IT professionals? And if so, are all 8 participants all IT, all legal, something else?
No, we don't have legal work as part of our IT professional services contract series. So gosh, we should, because some of these contracts get get a little hairy. But no, unfortunately, the legal end of things is not something that we specifically call out. You know, what would be helpful to folks that are interested in considering bids for MCATs is the counties under our Tebs department. We've published an enterprise architecture document which goes into further detail about over 20 different functional areas that Tebs supports. So folks could get a good look at the types of things that we will be asking for in our MCAT contract by looking through that document.
Great. Another question is, does the county have a partnership with any of the major cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft, or Google?
Ish. The county has a contract with one of Microsoft's resellers, not directly with Microsoft. But we are, as of now, a Microsoft shop. We're producing this presentation through Microsoft Teams. You know, we use Microsoft Outlook for our email, those types of things. We have enterprise agreement with Microsoft and purchase software through one of their exclusive resellers.
Yes. Let's see. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by this, but it says, does Montgomery County grandfather in Maryland, CATS contract holders? Also, I'm guessing they're talking about the state of Maryland CATS contract holders. Also, does the county procure IT security compliance services?
Okay, two different questions. So I'll answer the last one. Yes, the county does look for security services as part of their MCATs and LCATs offerings. I'm not familiar with the state's professional services contracts, but Montgomery County's LCATs and MCATs contract series are independent of that. So in order to do business with the county, you would have to be part of the MCATs or LCAT series. And the MCATs one, as I mentioned, is being recompeted.
Right. And there might be some overlap, which might be confusing. I think the state also has some of the same vendors that we do, so it might be a little bit confusing. But John's correct. They're completely
surely coincidental.
separate.
They would have to win at the state, and they'd have to win at Montgomery County.
Right.
We
Exactly.
don't look over there, and I'm sure they don't look over at us.
Right. I think we have just a few minutes left, so maybe I'll just pick one more question. And then we can wrap it up. Let's see. How can vendors start marketing their services in preparation for the MCATs opportunity?
Sarah?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm in the right thing, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Everybody can hear you.
I was like, oh no, is there a separate IT thing I wasn't thinking about?
No.
Okay.
So I will jump in, and then Sarah can correct me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure I'll be half wrong on this one. But you know, how can you market your company for MCATs before MCATs? Well, you know, we're going to put out an RFP, and so we're not really looking for that. We want to have your RFP response be, that's going to be the standard by which we evaluate things. Even companies that we've never heard of before, that's fine. You know, we're going to take your RFP responses and evaluate them based on their criteria, and we'll learn about your companies that way. So I would say that really the effort should be there. I don't know, Sarah, if you've got any other thoughts on that, but that, as part of the evaluation team, that's my thought.
I agree. I think that with any solicitation that you are looking to bid or to submit a proposal with Montgomery County, any reaching out to the department should be done before the solicitations on the street. So if you're looking to introduce yourself to the county and what you do. I would do that prior to the solicitation coming out. And attending events like this is very helpful, so you can get, an idea of what's coming up and kind of what we're looking for, and if your company, if it works for your company. So I think this is a good first step in that as well. But yeah, just like John said, we will put out the solicitation. We will have a pre-submission conference where you can ask questions and see who else is bidding on or is going to submit a proposal through those events, and do connections through there. So I would just say keeping abreast of all the events coming up and the solicitations, and looking at our website frequently.
Sarah, I would also probably add that if they are not familiar with county procurements, or if they have not participated in the county procurement before, to explore our website under the vendor resources, and to also look at the structure of the RFP, just so they're familiar with it and familiar with where things are and the types of things the county asks, although this particular one will have specifics to it. But those would be maybe two other suggestions I'd have.
I agree. Those are good starting points. And again, if you go to our website, as Pam said, you can see there's a tab just for vendor resources. We also have virtual open houses the third Wednesday of every month, which this is replacing that today, but that you can ask questions, if you're having trouble registering or whatever it may be. That's a good time to ask those questions as well. But you can always reach out to me, and I will do my best to get your question answered, or to direct you to the place where I think they can answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Sarah, for that lovely and informative presentation and question and answer session. That will conclude our IT session for this morning. Our next session will be, we're going to take a short break from 9:50 to 10 a.m. And our next session is the Montgomery County Agencies panel discussion from 10 a.m. to 10:50 a.m. And if you're just now joining us and you missed the previous session, the IT session, don't worry. These sessions are being recorded and they will be posted on our website. So now we'll take a short break and we'll be back with you shortly. Thank you.